Welcome to Leadership Plunge Podcast, the show where top performers dive into the challenges of becoming first-time managers and rise as impactful leaders. Each episode explores the high-stakes transition from technical expert to people leader, featuring insights from CHROs, founders, CEOs, and leadership visionaries shaping today's organizations. If you're navigating the waters of first-time management, expect bold conversations, real strategies, and the mental edge needed to lead with clarity and purpose. Here are your hosts, Marelys Garcia and Bhavna Karani.
So welcome to the very first episode of the Leadership Plunge. I am usually the one asking the questions, but today we're going to do something different, and we're going to have our producer, Nick, be the one to ask the questions. So over to you, Nick.
Thank you, Marelys. Always a pleasure to be the host on somebody else's podcast. It's a one-time deal, but it's always enjoyable. So my goal here is really to get you and Bhavna as the two hosts of your show to tell us about your podcast. So let's start by sharing with us, what is your podcast called and what it's about?
Our podcast is called the Leadership Plunge, and it is about leadership, focusing specifically on sharing ideas from people that have had a long career as leaders and have a lot of learnings to share with those that are starting as a leader, starting as managers. Our purpose is really to share those learnings so people that are starting in this difficult role of a manager has the tools and learn from the best of what techniques, what experiences can be applied to their jobs to improve their experience, really with the objective to help them.
So, Bhavna, share with us some of the things that you have seen yourself as people who become managers, because you know how it is in business. If you are good at something, you get promoted. Except that your promotion does not necessarily lead to doing the same thing a little bit with more pay. It usually comes with more responsibilities, which means now you have to be a manager, except that you don't know anything about being a manager. So, and that's where you guys are providing this. So share with us some of the challenges that you have helped with first-time managers that you intend to feature on the show.
Certainly. Thanks for the question, Nick. Well, basically, this comes out of our experience. The more than 25 years that Marelys and I have had in different organizations, in different multinational organizations, me as a CHRO and Mare as also senior leader, part of a big organization, is where we saw from ourselves and also from different people that we manage, is that precisely what you said, right? That we are great doers, and when we are great doers, we are being promoted. But being a great doer is a completely different universe from being a great leader. It requires different skills. It requires lots of reflections and self-awareness of realizing and reflecting on, how you're leading people, how you're motivating people, how you're impacting, with your behaviors, the behaviors of others and the company culture. And precisely that's how our journey starts, with lots of self-awareness, understanding, what are our flaws, what are our strengths, how we are as leaders, and what path or what learning journey we want to accomplish or we want to take in order to improve our way. And basically, it's about being authentic, and really, fitting when you're in a new role or you wear new shoes, that are a bit tight and you're not stepping in the right way. And you need to feel comfortable in order to really enjoy wearing those shoes. So the leadership role is the same thing. You really need to be authentic. You need to be you without wearing a different mask or without pretending, to know everything, because, well, it's a new role and you need to leave behind, many skills that have made you succeed and achieve what you have achieved in order to delegate on others. And you need to start embracing other kind of skills that will help you enjoy your role, basically enjoy your role as a leader.
Marelys, give us a sense of who should be tuning into this show. Who is your audience?
Good question, Nick. So for us, our audience is, of course, people that are starting their career as managers, as leaders, that are being managing for the first time. As Bhavna shared, it is a challenging time and journey to go from an individual contributor to a manager, where you then now have to deal with, helping others grow, take care of others, know how to communicate well, how to give feedback, have difficult conversations. And those skills simply you never learned before, never developed them because you didn't need them in the role that you had. So anyone that is facing that for the first time is definitely the audience that we want to speak to, so they can, as I mentioned earlier, learn from the people that we will invite to the show, from their experiences, from the learnings that they had in their own careers, and they can use that to bring it into their own experience and own jobs and apply those learnings so they can, help them succeed, which is really our objective. So for sure, first-time managers, and why not people that are also in middle management, that has been managers for a while. And I always say this, that the leadership journey, it's a learning journey for life. You have to learn continuously. So I don't think that it is necessarily reserved for those that are starting, but also people that want to learn from others, learn from their mistakes, which are usually great teachers, and from on the things that they have done right, so they can bring them into their own life as leaders and improve, because it's all about getting better every day. And the ever-changing world and the fast pace in which the world changes calls for us to be also doing the same thing, and learning from others is a great way of doing that.
Bhavna, who are you planning to have as guests on your show? The type of people who will be joining you so that you can talk about the subject.
Well, we are super excited to be able to invite to our show people that have crossed our paths throughout our experience as leaders in different multinational companies. We'll have CEOs from those multinational companies. We'll have people from our network, clients naturally that have, who we've worked with. So basically CEOs, CHROs, or people from the HR people and culture team, even consultants, coaches like us that have gone through different experiences, many of them coming from the corporate world as well, or from startups, who have encountered different situations, who have also learned from the situations, who have been in different stages of the corporate wheel. Basically, we are going to learn from their experiences, and throughout their stories, we want our conversations to be very based on our stories, right? And throughout stories is how we relate, we relate to those stories, because then we found out, at least I have found, having those conversations, I've had the same experiences, and then we can relate more easily, because you can say, I've been there, and now you see that others have gone through similar situations that you are going right now in your corporate career, and then relate. And that's how we learn from others. No, that's a kind of, we want it to be like a kind of mentoring session, but through an entertaining podcast that includes storytelling from these key opinion leaders that we are inviting to the show.
Yeah, we actually have a friend in our business group that says PowerPoint is dead, storytelling is alive. So it's all about storytelling. And it's so true, because we relate to the stories, but presentations don't really go too far. So, Marelys, so what I'm hearing from Bhavna is you really are going to have all kinds of people who can share their experiences as CEOs who are at the top, who need managers,
Yes.
as well as those who just became managers and then sharing their experience of what that was like, as well as those in the middle and the support system from providers to, consultants and coaches and others. So it looks like there's going to be a very diverse group of people who will be joining you on this podcast, right?
That is true, Nick. And I think there's a lot of value in that diversity, because not everybody experiences the same. And we, even if the journey is similar, meaning you're good at what you do, you get promoted, you get the help. The journey may be similar, but the stories are not, because you may be facing different challenges, because you may not have the support system around you to learn from, or mentoring, because some companies definitely do invest and upskilling or help these managers acquire skills that they need to lead, some others don't. So this diversity is going to make, as Bhavna was making reference to, is going to, through their stories, it's going to allow these people to really relate and find that their situation, what they're living at the moment, is represented by one of these stories that they're going to hear. So we want definitely to hear diverse voices. We don't want to be of the notion that no company ever helps first-time managers. That's not true. So through this diversity, we're also going to learn how different the experience have been for those that have been exposed or have been in corporations that have helped them from maybe those that have not. And that's why we want to make sure that we hear from diverse opinions, even opinions that are necessarily not the same, because that diversity, I think, is where the real learning is.
Given that you're going to have all these people who are pretty much across the spectrum of the workforce, really, at the end of the day, in leadership roles, give us some practical benefits of tuning into the show. What will people take away by being a follower, being a listener, or a viewer?
Good question again. I mean, I think primarily a bit of what we've said in terms of learn from the experiences of others. It's a great source of learning if we know that some first relate to the story and then say, what worked for you? How could that same skill or strategy that this person used in this particular situation, I could use to make myself be successful when I am, having the same kind of challenge at work right now. So I think one of the big takeaways, in my opinion, is going to be to find relatable stories that you can then take into your particular situation and then use those strategies that have worked for these people and apply them. And on the flip side of that, what to avoid, because it's also important to know, hey, I tried this, I learned from my mistake, but I wouldn't have done it again if I, because now I know that doesn't work. So you maybe can save yourself from doing things that are not going to work in a particular situation or are not going to give you the best results by hearing stories from somebody that had made those mistakes and failed or didn't succeed. So those are two key takeaways. I think also inspiration, which is a big thing. I think that by hearing stories that could be inspiring, of effort, of what kind of journeys, I think people are going to find a source for purpose, a source for inspiration, which I think in leadership is key. I think the best leader is the one that inspires their team. And so if you're able to find inspiration from, people that have gone through situations that you may be facing yourself, and you're able to take that back to your team, I think that's also a great takeaway and a great benefit that you're going to actually share with others in your team for. I would say I'll highlight those three things.
Marelys, so these are all good descriptive, but giving, because people identify, I want to tune into this. So give some specifics, like, for example, how to hire, how to promote somebody, knowing as a leader, actual specifics. So give us some specifics of the benefits that people can take away.
So Nick, specifics, for example, learn how to give proper feedback to the team, what works, what doesn't work, learn how to delegate and when to delegate tasks so that you're not, absorbing too much and not being effective. Learn how to have a difficult conversation. In management, you face those all the time, and that you never prepare for that unless you really learn the skills that you require to do that. So how to have those difficult conversations, how to communicate properly, how to keep your team informed, at the same time, shield them from things that may be happening in the company that you want your team not to be stressed about. That's a skill that you're going to learn from listening to this podcast of people that have gone through the same experience. Another one that is very important skill to have is learn how to have your team motivated. So what works? How do you tap into that intrinsic motivation on the team? How do a leader does that to have a team of followers that are going to go, to war with you or for you, as we like to say. Those are the key things that are key skills that leaders need to have nowadays to be successful. The people that tune into this podcast are going to learn from these successful leaders that we're going to have as guests.
Yeah, I mean, especially one of the things that you said that really resonates with me is how to have a difficult conversation, right? So it's a difficult thing. And generally what's happening is that there is an emotional stress that we are having a difficult conversation, while having that kind of emotions surrounding you becomes hard. So there is a methodology to having these conversations.
And also to take care of yourself as a leader, to manage stress. I mean, leadership is a stressful job. So you learn how leaders take care of themselves, not to, break your back because you're doing too much or break down or burn. So those are definitely key skills, right, that you need to develop. And that's what you're going to learn. Yeah, sure.
And if you allow me to add, something I would add as well is how to have meaningful connections with your teams. Meaning, because that solves many of the challenges we have as managers, such as having difficult conversations. If you're able to build meaningful connections, authentic conversations that build empathy and trust within the team, then you're able to take a leap as a leader, be you, your authentic self, create those connections with your team, within your team. And that's where lots of the struggles, communication struggles that are related with, for example, having difficult conversations, they get much easier. They get much easier because you allow yourself to say, you know what? I understand your needs, but these are my needs as well. Or I understand that you need this or you need to know, but I don't have all the answers sometimes, right? And that's fine, and we figure it out. So when those meaningful connections are created, then everything goes more smoothly. And this you learn through experience, through maturity, through, failing and realizing that, how to create those meaningful connections throughout your journey. And there's so much time, time that we could spare if we hear this from others through authentic stories, And I always enjoy hearing this or realizing, because that's how you make those connections as well to your real world, when you listen to others, when they're sharing, those experiences, those stories, those situations they've had, whilst having difficult conversations, whilst managing a team, and having those challenges. When we get to those details, that's when you really connect and you realize, how to do things differently.
Yeah, as they say, the devil is in the details. It's one thing to say, okay, just be more empathetic. But how do you do that? You
How?
can't just go to somebody and say, okay, I am being empathetic now. By the way, where the hell is this?
Hit the button.
Yeah. So as far as the topics that you intend to cover, like if I want to call this, because the way I see this, these conversations that you're going to have, it's almost like a curriculum, so to speak, that where you intend to probably go. I mean, obviously, it's all going to be based on real life experience by the kind of people you're going to have on the show. So, Bhavna, you want to give us that an idea about that curriculum? What kind of topics you intend to cover on the show with your guests?
Common framework is going to be leadership. Of course, leadership entails many other skill sets that are related to leadership. So, of course, we want to give the freedom to the people who are going to be invited, but we're going to give them a framework about, what's the topic. The person we invite will be more comfortable talking about culture, about values, because that's the moment, or the company they're representing is going through, right? So in my experience, it's good to give that freedom, a framework, so that the conversation is really, authentic and is really in line with the person's experience, right? So everything is going to be around, what are the challenges when you plunge into a leadership role? What have been your learnings, during that plunge, And of course, many topics come out there, topics that are very related to the skills we've just mentioned, how to go through a difficult conversation and I failed, I really failed and I wasn't able to take it forward. Or, what did I learn and how did I apply it? And then describe again, when you did succeed in having that difficult conversation with a team member, right? So it's basically a situation, I failed, I really, these were my learnings. And this is how I brought it into action once again, gave it a second go. And this is what I learned. And this is how it came out through a story, So it's going to be like a two-angle way, Leadership as a framework, and then covering a certain competency set where the person who's been invited feels more comfortable with, in order to give them that open ground as well.
Marelys, you want to add?
Yeah, what I was going to say, also career. I mean, I've in conversations that we've had, not necessarily within the context of the podcast, but in general, when you speak with leaders that have had a journey and a career in leadership, the learnings are also at different stages. So they would tell you, when I was in this particular stage of my career, this is what I value the most. This is the learnings that would really made a difference for me to continue to grow. And as I grew into the leader, into the career path, and I grew into the leadership journey, then I had to consider different things, different angles, because my responsibilities changed. So I think also that progression and the career that the leader is going to be able to relate back to us is going to be very interesting as a topic to address, because it's also for our audience valuable to see themselves reflected in that potential growth of a career that they could have within that industry that may be the same in which our guests are going to be the same industry as our audience may find themselves, or the same type of job. So describing that, how they made it to where they are today, what were the steps, what were the learnings, as Bhavna referred to, what is it that they needed, mentors, help, leadership courses, what is it that they did to get to where they are. I think I'm big on inspiration. That could be also a very inspiring thing to cover that helps our audience.
I was just listening to you, and then I remembered something that really, as far as first-time managers, they are not necessarily exclusive to like somebody who's been doing certain type of work and then now they are a manager. You could be a supervisor, that's the first time.
Yeah.
But a supervisor can become a manager, that's the first time. A manager can become a director, that's the first time, right? So you could be in a manager role already, but you still become a first-time manager when you become, if you make your way all the way up to the top. So let's say you could become a VP or whatever. So that's all of someone who's never been a VP now is a VP. That's the first time as well. So the different levels of first-time management, right?
Yeah, you're correct. At the end, you are literally experiences a new set of challenges. Because if we consider this to be some sort of a lens, as you are a first-time manager at the very first level of management, you have a lens that can see certain things. And of course, you need certain skills to manage that and to be successful at it. As you grow in the ladder, and you continue to elevate the layers of the company, or same company or different companies, it's sort of like you open up your lens. That means you are absolutely correct. You are the first time you're a director. Your responsibilities are different for the first time. So you're going to require, yet again, a different set of skills that you're going to need in order to succeed at that level, because you're going to have more responsibilities and you're going to see more, and you're going to have other things that you might have to represent that you didn't need to at this level. So you are right. And in a way, life is full of first times, and then you need to learn every time you face to face a first time as a leader in different layers, levels of the company. You need to learn new skills to manage, because your responsibilities are different, because you're seeing things from a different lens. So it's a very good point.
Yeah, I mean, leadership is something that you can keep talking all day, right? So there's all kinds of different aspects of it. Time is limited. So I want to now get to also know you a little bit. So let's start from Bhavna. Bhavna, tell us about yourself. What I'm interested in is really not your resume, but your life experiences, as you put it. Start with where you grew up. And what I always like to know is, if you look back at the time that growing up as a little girl, what was the first thing that you can remember that resembles what you do today?
So I grew up in India with loads of like a good Indian family. Not only my brothers, my siblings are my brothers, but your cousins become your siblings as well, as a joint family. So basically I didn't have only two brothers, I had a big, big family. So I remember me as the elder, I'm the elder. I was like somehow in charge of organizing everyone. Both my parents were away, they were traveling because of their job and so on. So I was left with a caretaker many times at home alone. So that's why I was called, like, from the others, like, you're the boss, you're always ordering around, So since I was small, I somehow felt I had the responsibility of making sure everything was in order and everyone had their job to do, and assign their task. Assign my brothers the task. So right till now, I still have that nickname, of bossy, because I was used to do that, and give instructions. I think that's what I really took over, because otherwise nothing would work right at home. So that's what I really took over to my earlier stages as a manager. I remember very well. So I'm a person, I think Marelys can say that, I'm very social. I have very good friends. So socially, I'm able to navigate very comfortably, also because I've lived in different countries with different cultural, diversity. So I'm able to manage myself very well in that area socially. But when I got my first management role in a multinational company, I remember very well that, I made sure that I went out for drinks, with my colleagues, that I had my after works in order to create that, that glue within us. But then when I would come back to work, I had that default that I would, start organizing everything and everyone. You do this, you do this, you do this, you do this. Don't worry, you do it, do. And I would start assigning tasks, and I was very focused on earning the trust of my boss, because I knew that if I had the trust of my boss, he was the one who was going to give me the salary raise. He would give me the budget. He would give me the raise for my colleagues. He would give me approvals to many things that I needed, and would give me, of course, an opportunity to promote, right, to other roles. So I was super focused on pleasing and gaining the trust of my boss. And I totally neglected gaining the trust of my colleagues and my teammates. They were part, of the ecosystem. It was very hard learning that, because there was like outside work, everything seemed fine. But when we came back to our environment, our work environment, there was like a thin tension, an unseen, very thin tension happening there, that everyone knew what's there, especially me. I knew something is not right. And I didn't have frank conversations with some years later, right? It took me time. It wasn't immediate. Years later, with some of my colleagues saying, you know what? I don't know why that tension was there, why I wasn't able to, really have authentic relationships within work, only outside work. Only then I realized, reflecting why that happened and why I wasn't focusing. I was only looking upwards, and I was neglecting my teammates and even people who are, within that I was responsible for. So that gave me lots of learnings. And I guess, thinking about that, I think that comes from my childhood need of organizing everyone, And of course, that can work out temporarily with my small siblings, but I can't take that, I can take that to my real world environment, no?
Why do you think you, as a little girl, ended up ordering people around? Where did that come from?
I guess because my parents trusted me that when they came back, everything was, more or less covered, kids fed, the house in order, and also to prove to my parents that they could trust me, right? That, you can leave them with me because I'm able
Why
to.
you? But why you?
Well,
Why you? You had brothers. I mean, you were a little girl after all. And why is it you that they felt that they could trust?
Good question. I guess because things got done, things got done. And since things got done, and I was able to somehow engage everyone to get things done, then everything ran smoothly. On the other side, I got that motto of, you're the bossy one, which is a motto that I didn't want to have, actually, right?
Because as kids are easily impressionable, right? So we look at things and then we copy very quickly. Were you modeling after somebody that you looked up to, your parents, or somebody that...
Maybe my father, but basically I think it came from a need to please others, to please the ones I loved. They were my parents, of course. So it's a need to please. That comes from a need to please, which not everyone has. I had that need, to be tapped here and said, good girl, you everything's in order. And I guess that need was there, that need that my father would come home and everything was in order and good girl. And I was always a good girl and the one that managed to solve everything. So I guess that's the need that comes.
So your father, I heard you mention they were traveling usually. Usually they were away.
Yeah. Usually they were away. Not only my father, my mother used to, not always, but my mother used to join him in those trips, whilst we had to stay over at home naturally for our schooling and so on. And we were left with our uncles, our aunts, or take daycarers, right?
I wonder if it's because you wanted your father close to you, but because he was away, so when he returned, you wanted to show him something, maybe.
Maybe. I've never thought about that way, but of course, everything is in order, everything is fine, stay here, and stay longer. But I'm sure that was there, because it was a period where we missed our parents a lot. We knew, they were traveling because of a reason and to bring money to the table and money to the family. But of course, that's always there. But actually, good question, because I've not given it such a deep thought. I think it's the first time I'm thinking about it in such a way.
I like to ask questions like that. So, all right. Well, look. I can go on even further. I can keep digging because I'm
I'm
sure we'll
sure
find
that will
something. But we
become
don't
a
have time.
A coach, I think.
I want to find out about Marelys. So, Marelys, same goes to
your
you. So,
turn.
I want to know where you grew up and what is the first thing that you remember?
Well, I am from Cuba originally. So I grew up in Cuba until I was 15 years old when I moved to the US. And then after that, I've moved to some other places in the world. So I consider myself from a bit of everywhere in a way, at least all those places where I lived. I lived in Spain, I lived in Australia. But my early childhood years were in Cuba. And I think the experience, as I was thinking through and Bhavna was telling her story, the one person that I think I recognized in leadership capacity, maybe naturally, because it was in my great grandmother. What impressed me about it is it's been a very impactful figure in my life. My great grandmother. I have a picture of her in my room where I sleep because it's somebody I feel very close, even though she died when I was 50, as a matter of fact. But she was what I call a natural born leader, someone that owns the room, has such a demeanor. In Spain, they say saber estar, which I love because it translates into know how to be in every situation. When it calls for firmness, when it calls from being stronger, and when it comes for empathy and listening and just be embrace the other and give reassuring words. Of course, as a grandmother, what I experienced most of was that part of it that grandmas do, right? The embracing and the empathy part. But I saw how she managed the family. How everybody respect her so much. She had 9 kids. All of them not only love her because of course they were the kids, but it's just respect her. So she earned the respect so gracefully without necessarily screaming or being harsh. I knew right away if this is how I wanted to be as an adult. I wanted to be the person that knows how to be and knows how to react and has the emotional intelligence to know when to be firm and know when to be soft and to really have really truly earn the respect of others just by the way she treated them. That's sort of the way in which I've looked in that model that I've looked for in my life or two in my life to try to become that. Not to say that I've achieved that, but that's what I try to remind myself every day. That's why I say I treat someone the way I like to be treated. This is how my abuela would be managing the situation. So I think she was the very first figure. Of course, I had others as I grew in my career. I met great leaders that I've learned so much from and that I feel so grateful to have had in my life. But she was definitely what I consider to be the first, and never went to school and hardly knew how to write, even though she wrote poems. So yeah, that would be it for me.
So, connect that experience with your looking up to your grandmother to what you do today. What was that initial seed of your career?
What I do today specifically totally has to do with helping people become that kind of leader. We in Minds Likes focus big time on self-awareness, big time on minds on an empathy, listen. What we call the modern leadership for us is rooted on these basic fundamental skills: emotional intelligence, self-awareness, mindset, empathy. People leader, you're dealing with people. Everybody has problems, may be facing a situation. You don't want to assume anything. First off, you want to understand. And for that, you have to listen. So for me, being here and founding this company and helping others become that kind of leader, find success from the people connection. Bhavna mentioned earlier, establishing that human connection. It's so powerful as a leader. So we emphasize that a lot. So in my journey, that has always been my inspiration. And I think for sure that's how I ended up having a company that focuses on helping people, especially those that do not have the skills, because oftentimes they're neglected by companies because of a lot of different reasons. Some of them may even good reasons to give them the skills. And so it's a lonely role to be a first-time manager. Mm-hmm. And that's where you suffer a lot of these things for the first time. So we focus on them because we empathize with that. And I think that's why literally I landed doing what I do today.
Your grandmother passed when you were 15?
Yeah, my great-grandmother, correct, when I was 15.
So she did not really get to see you take this career path.
Not in this dimension, no, but I'm pretty sure that's a whole different conversation that she does see me.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's no doubt that she's looking over, and you feel the presence of it. It's
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
as far as your direct interaction with her when she was around is really until the age of 15. Did you know at that time that you were gonna get into something like this as a girl growing up, still a child, but nevertheless 15-year-old is that area where you belong to neither side, right?
Not that I was going to end up in here. I was going to say what I learned now in retrospect is how influential people around you can be. So what a big responsibility in front of younger people we have, because we can be such a source one way or the other, for the better or for the worse. So I'm an engineer, Nick, and I became an engineer because my aunt, my mother's younger sister, which is closer to me in age, was an engineer, and then I saw her. So my great grandmother was there when I wanted to, which inspired me to be or try to be. If I was ever a leader, I was not thinking in leadership in a company. I was thinking in leadership in a family environment, in a friend environment, and in a group, to be that kind of person that brings people together. And then my aunt inspired me to be an engineer, and so she was the next person I looked up to. So I think throughout we find people that are references for us, and that's why references are so important, that can guide you. And I mentioned earlier, inspiration is big for me because I think it makes such a difference if you find those figures in your life. So as a leader, but for sure, as in the way in which I live my life, my great-grandmother was a big influencer. Live my life in the sense of be that person that helps people, be brought together. And if you sort of extrapolate that into my professional life today, this is exactly what we do. Help people bring others together. I mean, rattle around a team or a company or on a purpose.
How did you get to develop such a close relationship with your great grandmother? Because usually great grandmothers are not around. So
Yeah.
they passed a long time. And also our lives are filled with our parents and grandparents, right? So now here you are, great grandmother. So how did that come to be?
Because I was lucky, Nick. We lived, Cuba. So you have to also put that in perspective. We were, a family that was living in Cuba. You tend to share that same home with like all generations because you don't have the ability to go buy a new home. So that's bad for some things and it's good for other things because it helps you grow around your family a lot. And so my great grandmother, when my mother married to my father, gave her a room of her house to build their own home, sort of grow from there. So we literally lived, as I was a child, in a house that was attached to my great-grandmother. So she was in my life every day. I was sick. She would cure me with just, praying and touching my belly. She was such an amazing, really, I could be speaking about her. And so I was so lucky. I can only say so lucky to have her, until I was 15, until she died. She was in my life every day, which is awesome.
Well, I'm sure she's watching everything you do, and I'm sure she's proud. And you should be proud most because, I mean, look, everything you're describing, where you started and where you are, and most important, the kind of lives that you're touching with people take on these challenges to become managers. Now with this podcast, sharing it all to spread it. As they say, what is it? Pay it forward, right? So
Forward.
paying it forward. So great. So share with us your contact information. First of all, tell us again one more time what your podcast is called, how people can access it, and also share your contact information for Start with Bhavna and give us your contact, how people can reach you.
My name is Bhavna Karani. You can contact me through LinkedIn, also through the webpage of Mindslines, mindslines.com. That's where you can, that's the company Mare and myself have founded together with another friend of ours, and where all the information of our services are there. And the podcast, for sure, we're going to be streaming on different platforms, Spotify and other platforms. So, and we'll be launching on LinkedIn under the Mindslines page. And our podcast is going to be the Leadership Plunge on Spotify.
Great. And Marelys, and how can people reach you?
Nick, as Bhavna said, they can find me in LinkedIn. My name is Marelys Garcia, and in LinkedIn we're there, presence personally and also through the company web or to the company account. Also in the website, mindslines.com. Our contact information is there, the email, telephone number. As Bhavna said, our services, also our coaching products. So in the website, you can learn more about myself, Bhavna, our co-founder, and also our company and our services. And then, of course, through the Leadership Plunge episodes that we're going to be broadcasting, we're going to be announcing, we're going to be sharing clips and promoting them on LinkedIn. So hopefully a lot of people will tune in, and especially because there's a lot to learn by tuning into our podcast.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun because for me, it's about unveiling stories, confessing. Wouldn't confess in a more formal organizational environment. So it's about that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I always have interest in these, but most important, the people that you're responsible for, you want to help them. So this will be a great source. Thank you, ladies, for giving me the opportunity. I enjoyed the conversation. We could talk all day, but unfortunately, life goes on. So thank you again. And I'm looking forward to tuning into the show.
Thank you,
Nick.
Thanks for having us and for interviewing us. It's been fun too. And making us vulnerable. But yeah, that's what life is about. We need to be vulnerable to be good leaders. At least I think so.
True.
Thank you, Bhavna.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Leadership Plunge podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.